Yesterday I talked about some of my works in the museum, in the Jewish Museum, and I will not repeat about the place of art again, but I will talk about, again, in a different context, about the work, the Hamburg Monument. So I will describe it briefly for the people that were not there yesterday. So this was an initiative by the city of Hamburg in the beginning, in the middle of the 80s. It was the beginning of the rise of the neo-fascism. They didn't yet have a name, neo-fascism. And so they wanted to make a competition for 6 artists that they invited to create a monument against fascism. And I then worked with Johann Gerz, who was my second husband, and a German artist. And for me, the idea of making a monument was very passé or problematic, because growing up, being born in Lithuania under Russian occupation with the big monuments, the tradition of big monuments, and the same in Israel too, where I lived after and studied, I really wanted, as I said, very intuitively, I wanted all monuments to disappear. And we decided to start from the idea of monument that disappears. At that time, I was not yet visiting Germany, and at that time in Germany, they didn't yet have any monument around fascism or the Holocaust. So in my imagination, there was many, but there were not. So the proposition we came up with is, and they chose it. So this was a commission that was chosen. And it is a 12 meter, 1 meter by 1 meter square. It is, the surface is lead, and there is a text in 7 languages inviting people to sign their name in the soft metal against fascism. What was important for me and for us was that it's a different way to memorize. What is it where we go to memorize actually? We memorize, we invite people to create a new memory of their act. Because what we say that every time the surface of this monument will be covered, it will be lowered, the whole structure will be lowered into the ground. And so if tomorrow everybody will decide not to sign, it will not move. But for this, we have to get together and talk about it. Again, creating a memory around what is fascism. So we decided to do 7 languages, means the 4 languages at the end of the war, so German, French, English, and Russian. This is, we are talking about 86, inauguration of 86. And then Hebrew, and because of Hebrew, Arabic, and then Turkish because of the Turkish. So we had a panel of 7 languages inviting those people, and then don't even think or imagine that there will be a lot of Russian people that would come and read it, so it made me very happy. Of course, on the surface, there was everything, because it was forbidden to touch the surrounding. So nobody did a lot of writing, what we do today in a lot of cities, outside. So it was declared as a place you can write. For us, sign against fascism, but there was a lot of other things that were written on it. People were violent against it, people were writing, I love this and that. Means it became the public space, a public place where you are allowed to express. And it became, the nature of this material is such that you have this very dense memory of the surface. And then there was a discussion of the jury that wanted our work, and they said, why don't you start from small and slowly, so we have an object in the end, or we can take parts of it and put it in the museum. And we said, no way, it has to disappear. The only thing that should left is the way we participate or not in this project. So, of course, in '89, everybody were signing a lot. So in '90, there was two lowerings because of the disappearing of the Berlin Wall. And slowly people, as you see in the top, started really to talk to each other. So people would sign something and somebody would respond. Here you can see it in Russian. So this is the text in Russian. And at the time, we didn't realize really that we are doing a very kind of dramatic act. It was a discussion, I don't know if you heard about James Young, is an art historian, very important one in the context of monuments. He was involved a lot in the Holocaust monument in Berlin and now in New York, the September 11 monument. He writes a lot, and this is his speciality, is thinking about monument, and he called it, from the beginning, anti-monument. And for years I was writing to him, I said, no, it's a monument. It's not an anti-monument. So then we had a round table in a conference, and he decided that he'll call it a counter-monument. That is a better way for me, because just to discussion that was before, changes don't happen very quickly. It takes a long time where you adopt a radical proposition. So for me, this monument was a way to actually work with crowds, and I'm very interested. I became completely interested because there was a moment in the inauguration, as I said yesterday, it was very, very, very tense. People didn't like the monument. They said, it's not a big lion with the name of the victims we have to sign. What kind of monument is that? And suddenly we started to talk about monuments, we started to talk about fascism, anti-fascism, what does it mean to participate? This is '86. And then every year when we came to lower it, there was big meetings and big, the press would come to the meeting and the mayor would say, can you not come this year because we have election? So this work kind of inversed itself into, it's not the city into the work of art, but the work of art in the city. And this is exactly what was so important with the placement of this work. We wanted to place it not in the park where they wanted, but we wanted to place it next to the mayor, facing the market, going to the metro where people see it every day. And so even if they don't sign, they will talk about it. And there was a lot of discussion around it. So, of course, don't forget, if something like that, like a measure, starts slowly to disappear, it's also the whole city line horizon is moving somehow. And this is kind of the last movement, and then it disappeared, and we worked with the same group of workers that kind of accompanied their lowering. So they became a big part of us. Here they are, being really very proud to understand such a work that was that made a lot of discussions that we don't even know today who discussed and what. But what we know that there was a lot of writing. So from '89, the work the New York Times were talking about and a lot of other places. So suddenly the work that was not loved became a very proud place to first the art world and then the local people. And the local people, just to give it a context, it was a very problematic place. It's Hamburg. It's where Hamburg started, and now it is a suburb of the poor people, of the social people, and also some of the terrorists that took the planes to the September 11 towers actually lived there too. So there was a very kind of reactive community there. So we, of course, we didn't know it, the city that wanted. So I love to make commissions, because in a commission you immediately know and sense if we are in a democracy or in dictation. So I like very much to, because you also have a good dialogue, bad dialogue, complicated dialogue, but you have a dialogue. And you know there is things that matter, even if you change one person's opinion, it matters. So this is for me the work about the creation of memory. There is a place you can actually see it from down, but we kind of made it so you cannot really see much, because people think when they see, they understand, and they forget the work. So for us it was important to make it equivalent, so you have to kind of make people read it. So the next work I will talk is, again, a work that is in between. I was invited in 2000 in Weimar to talk about, to make a work. And they said, this is the Bauhaus University, and we have a pavilion on the roof, and this is where your exhibition will happen. When I went there, it was done from glass and metal, and I said, wow, Walter Benjamin would have loved to be here. Weimar is where Goethe and Schiller and, you know, really the culture, the berceau of culture in Germany. And so wouldn't he love to be here, because this is how dramatically he died, because he was leaving Berlin too late. And because he always wanted to be recognized by the German intelligentsia, so I said to make for him a house, a temporary house for a couple of months in Weimar would be so nice. And then, if you know Weimar, it's East Germany, but it's also where Hitler thought it would be so nice to make a concentration camp, Buchenwald, a couple of kilometers from there. Not a couple of kilometers. It's above Weimar. You actually are above Weimar, and you look at Weimar from here. But what happens is, it's so cold here that you actually die from cold. So the concentration Buchenwald was done there. And so I asked a taxi driver to take me from Goethe house to Buchenwald. And the taxi driver is slowly describing to me the road. What does he describe actually is the thing that don't exist anymore, that we can't see. And so we are driving up, and again the story of the sound, but I can talk over, it's okay. So he's describing me the place to go up there. And I'm filming, he takes me for a tourist. I don't say anything. Then he kind of tells me, and whenever we get to a place that is not existing, he talks about the road and that we see. But then he gets and he says, okay, this is where the train station was, and you look out and it just looks so beautiful. It's so beautiful there. So what I did in this moment, I took, you know maybe the text of Walter Benjamin, The Angel of History, after Paul Klee. So it's a work of art that Paul Klee made, and Walter Benjamin decided that this is his inspiration. And he would actually write on a lectern talking to the little angel. And he wrote the text, and then other people wrote texts after his text. And what I did, whenever he talks about something we cannot see, I will insert one way. First, I take out 3 seconds from the video and put it back, and so the video goes a little bit like and then I insert somebody that reads in a beautiful way, Schrageline, those texts. But I start with a text of Kafka that is done before Paul Klee. And it's a wonderful text where Kafka, a very contemporary text, where Kafka writes about this person that sitting in the dark in a pub, and he looks up, and suddenly there's an angel coming towards him. It's a beautiful white angel.
Das Schwert im erhobenen Arm waagrecht ausgestreckt. Also ein Engel, dachte ich. Den ganzen Tag fliegt er auf mich zu und ich in meinem Unglauben wusste es nicht. Jetzt wird er mit mir sprechen. Ich senkte den Blick, aber als ich ihn wieder hob, war zwar noch der Engel da, hing ziemlich tief unter der Decke, die sich wieder geschlossen hatte, war aber kein lebendiger Engel, sondern nur eine gemalte Holzfigur von einem Schiffsschnabel, wie sie in Matrosenkneipen an der Decke hängen. Nichts weiter. Der Knauf des Schwertes war dazu eingerichtet, Kerzen zu halten und den fließenden Talg aufzunehmen. Die Glühlampe hatte ich heruntergerissen, im Dunkeln wollte ich nicht bleiben, meine Kerze fand sich noch. So stieg ich also auf einen Sessel, steckte die Kerze in den Schwertknauf, zündete sie an und saß dann noch bis in die Nacht hinein unter dem schwachen Licht des Engels.
And so it goes on like that, and there is 7 texts that are read during this 14 minutes of the video, and it's a text by Walter Benjamin, by Kafka, by Müller, by Gershom Scholem, all these people that try to understand this angel of history that is flying. I also did this double clock for the house for Walter Benjamin, and also did this double chair, where you take 2 chairs and you push them together, and where you actually have to touch the person that you are looking, that is looking opposite of what you are doing. So this was the Inseparable Angel, an imaginary house for Walter Benjamin in Weimar. This is a different exhibition, and I also made this photos of, this is the train station. Before that there was SS barracks, and this is the installation in different places where I showed it. So this is the chair, and this is the text, the 7 texts that are also kind of a picture there in it. So you have the Franz, you have Kafka, Paul Klee, Walter Benjamin, Gershom Scholem, and a text of Heiner Müller about it. So it's a work about this memory in between those places. There's a very beautiful work that is done by Hoheusel in Buchenwald, and what he did a square of 1 meter by 1 meter of metal that is on the ground, and it is all the time warm, 37 degrees, like the body. So in the snow, you see this shaft of melted snow that is there. So because the director of Buchenwald invited contemporary artists to do different work, I did also a work that I will not talk about. It's called Menschendinge. So I will talk about another work that is about how do I so-called telescope the idea of a memory or history. And it's a work that I did in Miami Beach. There's a strange museum that's called the Wolfsonian. And the Wolfsonian is a place that tries to collect everything, images, pieces, objects of from the time of 1885 to 1945. Means trying to resuscitate these two world wars and the Industrial Revolution, the Depression, and you find there a lot. So I thought I'm going to do a work about propaganda because there was a lot of items from propaganda. And actually, I was taken by the image of the worker. That was a lot of works, paintings and drawing and photography about the worker, the big hero. So, because somehow I felt that we are living today in a time that we don't photograph the workers anymore. They don't appear in our works. We don't see them. They became translucent. We don't know anymore how to build things. We don't know how material works. We don't care about the real work. And it's a real moment of bascule, of kind of. So I decided to call for help of people that know well the language of art, like you, like art historian, collectors, curators, artists, and come, and I chose 40 works, and I asked the museum. I never chose the people myself. I always ask the people that ask me to do a work to choose people, and so to invite people that can come and choose one of these works with the worker. Means first you choose, and then to describe it on video. So I also use the best material, the best video, because I wanted everybody to be amazing. Not only the pieces of work that sometimes were very small, but also the participants that read and describe. And description is a very important kind of act. So what was pretty amazing is that actually everybody that chose a work of art said that in their history, oh, it reminds me of my grandfather that worked in the quarry and died because a big stone fell on him. Or, so there was this kind of pretty amazing part of it. And then I asked each of them, after you describe the work, you take the work and you go in the vault, in this huge collection of this period, and you put it where you want in a new context. You give it a new context. And whenever the context was done, I would photograph it with a very good camera, and this became the work. So it was like a telescoping of an image from another era into today. So I'll show you a little bit of the video and some of the photographs.
It's very dark, it's very mysterious, it's very strong. The way it's organized is with the angles and the contrast of the lights and darkness say a lot to me about what labor and work and the anonymous quality of work is. You have to look very carefully at this figure who's hunched, concentrating, probably welding. And if you look closely at her back, it seems to me I actually see the outlines of an undergarment, a feminine undergarment on her back, which means, at first glance, it's not the man working with this horrendously difficult, powerful chore, but a woman. It's not a woman's work. You expect her to be at a sewing machine or at a sink or in a domestic situation. And I find that very, very moving. And even though we don't know who she is, where she is, when this took place, or where this took place, it's something that is timeless and still meaningful to us today. The image on the right is filled with 3 women, 4 almost, and the 4th woman, we don't see her head, but we're assuming it's a woman.
This is Russian propaganda images that I chose from a beautiful, I used several images from there.
And they're doing more meticulous, clean work at a table. And also the geometry of the setting is pleasing. It comes toward you. You feel part of the work. And on a personal level, the main woman worker reminds me very much of my paternal grandmother who also was a talented woman who worked with her hands, sewing and designing clothes for personal reasons, for me also. So I think the combination of the men and the women and the way this work is illustrated is very positive, very successful, and I am pleased to look at it.
So then I will show you a little bit the images that came out of it. So this is the exhibition. You see the video and the photographs. I also asked a group of musicians, 12, to choose a work and compose music. So you would hear music that were inspired by those work when you moved in the exhibition. And every time this is the work now in a new context. Some people chose two. This is the guy that his grandfather died in the quarry, put him on it became like a person. So from a person in art, it became a person. Or this is Italian painting of workers being damaged in a mine. Or this is like workers in a strike, reading the news about the strike. It's called The News. Or this is Build America, a propaganda image from America. I did also something that we still have in each home, is a hammer and a glove from glass. So those objects that are kind of relics that we still have in our rabota kind of situation. And I worked with people that helped me to build those. It was fascinating to do them, and for them too. They usually do beautiful Murano glass kind of objects. This time they had to do this. So this is some of the works. And the next work, and the last one I will talk, is a recent installation I did in Canada. And this is kind of, in the University of British Columbia, there is the biggest plaza. And I did a research what was in this university before the university. And it's easy because there the prehistory is like 100 years ago. So Vancouver is actually a city that it's kind of easy to do the archaeology, so-called. And I realized that before that there was this giant trees, the Douglas fir. And the idea that came to me after researching was to make a shadow of an absent tree, just to give the background of what's happening in the university during me doing this. So as I said before, there is the native tribes, the Indian, and actually one tribe owns the grounds of the university. There's no treaties between them. And so before, nobody would even talk about it. But today, each ceremony starts with thank you, the Musqueam people, of giving us their permission to do this and this event. Not only that, they also, during that time that I'm researching and building, it took 3 years, they built a house that is an archive for the reconciliation. So I don't know if you know the history of what the occupiers, right, the white people that came to Canada did. There was a lot of very heavy history there. And so the history is being now reworked by a lot of means, a lot of art by them and by other artists, by film, but it's in the meat. There's a lot of anger that is now finding words. So, and there's two beautiful totems that is erected on the university grounds. So this is major. So you can go UBC and look. The totem poles are amazing, and the totem pole is about how Indian children were taken from their families and put into religious schools to become kind of white. So all this is happening while I'm building this. So I decided when everybody was agreeing that it's okay to do the shadow on the big plaza, I decided whatever place would be attributed to me, I would let the material dictate the outcome. Means, in the beginning they wanted to give me a big grass patch. I decided to work with different colors of grass. So which means I don't work alone, it's the material that works with me, it's my participant. And in this case, there was, as you see, I was lucky, this plaza was brand new, a year and a half, not even. And we replaced, it was one color, this kind of brown, a beige. And so we replaced 24,000 bricks of pavers of concrete in 3 colors that I chose, we did especially for the work. So this is from the drone, but actually today if you go to Google Maps, you can see it. I'm very proud of that. And it's more or less, when you walk on it, you don't see what it is. But slowly, it's again like a work about including, because we always, when we walk, we look on the ground, because if not, we fall. But we don't ever remember. If I ask you, what color was it? What material was it? It's not things we remember. So our unconscious is full of those I don't remember places. And especially the ground. For me, it was very important to do a work with a lot of absent. I believe that when you do a work with deficit, it kind of makes the work continue working. That is always a wish of an artist, that the work is still relevant somehow. So here, there's no object. As a friend of mine said, you did it's 100 meters long, you did a big impact with no object. Fantastic. And people, I photograph it here from different buildings. There's building all around, so it's not a problem. There's a huge new building. If you go to Vancouver, please go visit. It's a union of the students, and it's beautiful. It's done from wood, and in the middle there's a big egg. It's called the Nest, and you can go and make exhibition in the egg. Everything is done from wood, but this is all by chance and by unconscious decisions. So when you walk, this is what you see. There is like, slowly, you kind of take in branch after branch when you cross, and everybody crossed there. So this is what you see. So it's a lot of discussion that I have with the students about asking me, what do you mean you don't see the work? What does it mean you do a work that we cannot see it at once? So we had to discuss about resistance of a work being consumed immediately, and a work that you walk on. And so what does it mean when you walk on a work? And what was fantastic, the ceremony of inauguration in September was started by a chief of the tribe, and I was really afraid, because sometimes they can be very angry, they come dressed up, and they talk in their language, and they go away, and you don't know what's happening. So for me, it was really... So this man comes, and he's dressed really nice, with 3 pieces, and I talked to him, I tried to explain him, and he doesn't move much, and I said, oh, God, that could be bad. And he starts to talk, and he starts to move first, and then he starts to talk and say, we, the masculine people, were born with the memories of before. We're incarnated people. I remember the trees. So it means when a community in a work in public space, especially in a complex political, more than political, historical context, embraces a work that can be in a dangerous move, saying like, what do you do with our trees? This is my trees. What are you doing with the trees? It could have been. So he really embraced the work very much, saying the trees were our place of learning. So to say that, it means that he's coming towards the university, saying you are a place of learning, you did it in the place we used to learn from nature. So this is all the plans for the work, and thank you very much.
Я хотел бы узнать, исчезающий элемент, было замечено, что к концу своей жизни, когда он уже практически исчез, потом привлекал к себе больше внимания или меньше внимания относительно того этапа, когда он был высоким, в середине.
As an artist, it's very hard. Also, it costs a lot of money to do it. So when you give money, you want an object. So the city was saying like, well, you know, but we had to resist it. Also to resist ourselves. You want to have something. So we have today the part of the monument that is here, and the texts are still there. We added the photographs of them coming in. And today this is a work of art that is studied in books, and today it's in history, and sometimes people come to me and say, oh, you should know this work, it's very interesting. They don't care who did it anymore. But just to tell you that a couple of days ago, I couldn't sleep, and I was listening to, there's a very good radio kind of, it's called Ideas, a Canadian. And there was a native artist, and she did a work about a young native boy that 27 years ago was found dead and frozen in Toronto, beaten by the police because he was drunk or something. So she did a monument for him. And the monument was a piece of ice, he was frozen, right? So a square of ice, and she chiseled the name of him. And she asked the people, it was a Nuit Blanche in Toronto, and she asked the people that come to visit just to touch the ice, and in the evening or in the end of the night, you had a little bit of water. So I you know, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same thing. It has this kind of you are losing. So, but there is something lost that is not lost. Because I remember this work, and since I was invited to several conferences, I tell this work all the time. Because it's so, first of all, not to be alone and where works disappear, and it becomes a way also, you know, there's a lot of artists today that say, I want to do work without an object. We are fed up of objects. So there's a discourse today too. How can we do so? Talking about periphery or not, or to do object or not, will we do that or not? Will we do only performance when we do some ephemeral? I don't think so, because we have body and we are still there. And but it's an interesting moment in time. But this was in '86. So you have to be crazy to do it, you know, you don't think. You really after that, every time I talk about this work, I say like, we were actually saved. This work was saved by one person in the jury. There was an engineer that absolutely understood it, the work. And he was moving the whole jury and also helping us to build it, because it's hard to build it. And at the opening, we all got drunk, and he said, in every city we should have our one. Okay. Well, no.
Да, у меня есть еще вопрос. I want to ask about describing labor.
Yeah.
And you told that the context of work was changed, but I think the very important thing that the context of the whole museum was changed. It became not like a collection of everything, but when you put personal stories into it, it completely changed the point of view to this collection. And I'm interested, these replaced works, were they still in the same place in this collection when you suggested participants to place these chosen works inside the museum? They now are at the same place, or museum workers put it back?
I don't know, it's a very strange museum. I can think that half of them are still there, because when I started to make the research and I wanted images of workers, and they had one inventory, and they went and we found a whole box with them that they never even put inventory. It's so much work, they have so much work. And you know, we think museums are a very nice place, but if you go to the, and we went to the archive, you need an army of archivists to really put a context, not only archive, to put a context, to display. There is some museums that display their archives, and because archives are really, I find archive more interesting than the work, in this museum especially, the way they display the work is completely crazy. And you are absolutely right that this work contextualized the museum in a different way. I was now in Miami a couple of weeks ago, and I met two art historians there, and they said that since this work, this whole museum in this way, in their point of view, changed quite a lot. Yeah.
Можно ли вопрос о мнении? Your speech reminds me of the Benjamin paper called Storyteller, and listening to you, I thought about it, and for you, is it important to tell the stories nowadays from your personal opinion? And one more about the monument which has disappeared. So it has disappeared, but it could continue in the storytelling. So it is something, new way of thinking of how to tell stories. What could be the trigger for this old-fashioned style of thinking of? Because when Benjamin told about the storytelling and storyteller, he thought that it is dead, absolutely. So it disappeared from the his modern life.
Well, yeah, but today storytelling kind of come back. A lot of works, the artists say that it's storytelling. But I cannot hold on to a work. You know, works go away and become different. We heard before that, you know, when they are hanged in different way in museums, and maybe tomorrow that will be contextualized in a different way. And so, I don't know, I'll check it out. I didn't know, I thought I know quite a lot, but I didn't. I don't know, Benjamin a lot of time kind of was for something and then against the same thing. So he was such a creative person, so I don't know, I would like to talk to him about it.
Yeah, I have a question about your last work.
The shadow?
Yeah, since you were working with this topic that is considered to be quite tricky nowadays because you were working with this like minorities, were you thinking about that when you decided to choose this exact topic, or did you have any advices from the sides like, do not touch this topic please, otherwise we will have some problems?
So I went and I asked to meet several people and to talk, to submit my project not only to the art committee of the university that had to find the money, you know, it's a big budget thing, but also to go to talk to them and to project, to give them. And this, before that, they had two people that would more or less kind of be the one that received what is done at the university. But as the situation changed, they had so much work that they didn't get to my project, but I was all the time, like this. So now, the question is, where do I have the shadow? Where's the tree? The tree is cut 100 years ago. So I did this work, I did this shadow. I went and I looked at there's still 11 big giant trees on the slope. They couldn't cut it because it's very hard to get there. So you see what trees are, they are very resistant to photograph. You cannot photograph a tree, it's huge, it's like a sculpture. And what it is, it's a portrait of a certain tree. Like I said yesterday, we are all different from each other because our history makes us look like this or like this or like this. So our history is important. So it's about the history of this particular tree that I created in 3D. Means like architect make, like I did the place of art. So I created a tree after observing and making a lot of photographs. I created a tree that looks a little bit broken and a little bit damaged as he has to negotiate with the trees around and with this. Then in 3D, as with any kind of maquette for a building, you have also the device of light, so you can decide what kind of shadow you will create. So this tree I created, but nobody even asks me about it, you know. They think, oh, there was a tree and I made the shadow only, right? So, voila, this is an artist.
May I ask a very short question? I wondered what was written on the monument, not only words, I think, not only signatures, not only names. Was there any violence?
Oh yeah, people tried to shoot it, to break it, but we did, there was a big structure of aluminium and metal, and then half a centimeter of lead. It was very hard to destroy it actually, but they did try. And they didn't manage, but there was a lot. There was swastikas, there's Nazi house, there's everything was on it, just like so much, because it was the only place that you officially could do it. And so there was a lot of, Jochen, my partner, is German, so he was really offended. He was really, really offended. He was kind of, and they shouted at us in the beginning. It was so bad every time actually that we came. It was, you really had to be strong. So it was very violent. It brought up the violence, but slowly it started to change with the people. People started to find words. In the end, you had the feeling it's like babies. In the beginning, you do like this, and slowly they kind of, wow, we can do it. And then other people started to stand on top of somebody else to get high to answer what the other person wrote. So it was kind of a sponge that kind of held, mainly in the memory of the people. For me, it was really, I had a friend that went around after and tried to ask people, and they told him absolutely crazy stories about a lot of other things that happened and didn't happen. Means it stayed always in the imagination and in the memory of the people because it's such a strange thing. If things disappear, it can be bad, it can be good. And this kind of moving is creates kind of a context.
Спасибо.
Thank you.